Welcome, everyone. KVWN Channel 4 San Diego News Team, assemble! Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and everyone that's going to tune in later. This is Persian Scribe, Jason C. Stiles, and this is Be Seeing You News. And I'm joined by Mark Hicks, my co-pilot, who has the channel Raised by Gypsies, if he wants to say hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, I'm live. Hello, everyone.
All right. Well, today, this is the premiere episode of Be Seeing You News, and I want to kind of explain where the name of the show comes from and what we'll be discussing. I think in the promo, I put forward some basic themes of what's going to be running through the show, namely that we're always in a state of learning, and that will never stop. And also, the idea of asking questions and being critical thinkers in an age of deceit. We're going to be constantly asking questions on this show. Some may be answered, some may not be. But we're definitely going to be asking questions. We're presented just an onslaught of information in this internet age, and it's very difficult for some and for many to discern truth from lies, from fake news, from agendas, from propaganda, Edward Bernaysian style advertising blitzkriegs that we're all subjected to. So on this show, we'll be doing a weekly news roundtable, probably try to keep it to around an hour per week. We'll break up the news segments, the articles that we cover, the various topics that we cover. We'll break those up into smaller videos for easier consumption, because I know a lot of people don't have time to necessarily watch multi-hour long hangouts or shows or whatnot. So we'll be doing that, and Mark will be doing that on his Raised by Gypsies channel, putting some of the videos up, and I'll be putting some videos up, and we also have the Be Seeing You News channel if you want to like and subscribe to that. The idea of Be Seeing You News, the origination of that comes from an absolutely stunning and amazing show from 1967. It was originally broadcast in the UK, and it was called The Prisoner, starring the superb Patrick McGoohan. And it's just one of my all-time favorite shows. And some of you probably have seen it, and for others that haven't seen it, I'm kind of explain what the show is about. And I think it completely applies to the idea of a news show and the world we're living in currently. It's very contemporaneous. It was a show far, far ahead of its time. It had aspects of social commentary, philosophy, psychology. It had surrealistic aspects, anti-authoritarian concepts and themes as well. The main concept of it was the idea of being an individual and balancing that with the collective and larger society as a whole. Patrick McGoohan's character, he portrays a former British secret agent abducted and imprisoned in a mysterious coastal village resort. And I very much identify with McGoohan's character because he's trying to understand the village that he's been brought to. And it's like trying to understand the rules. And he comes to realize that it's not just a physical prison that he's been taken to. It's also a prison of the mind. And basically, he when he arrives in the village, he wakes up, he's assigned a number 6. He finds out that the village administrator, the mayor, is classified as number 2. No one has names. You just go by the numbers that you're designated by. Number 6, Patrick McGoohan's character, becomes very suspicious of all the residents in the village. And there are a variety of techniques that are explored through all the different episodes of how the control system controls the residents of the village, the population that they're, it kind of applies to the world we live in now. What are the techniques such as mind control, just, identity theft, physical torture, peer pressure, social indoctrination, even dream manipulation, the influencing the stimuli that we're subjected to. So those are some of the ideas that were explored on the show, and I think it completely applies to a new show because we live in a sort of village. It's an allegory for the village, the world that we live in now. It's timely now in the world that as it was 50 years ago when the show was made. And the idea of having an imitation of civilized society carrying on while its privacy is undermined. We have technological surveillance rampant. It was rampant in the village. Freedom is shunned as antithetical to the happiness of the larger collective, to the residents of the village. If you are truly free and try to live separate and away from the influences of the people that surround you, it's viewed as implicitly and explicitly as antisocial behavior. And that is a major thing of what we're going to try to resolve, because with every topic that we're going to be covering on this show, such as philosophy, history, any number of topics that interest us, you're going to have people that automatically have an architecture of belief and an architecture of rhetoric in place to defend their positions. Well, how did they get to that point? How do they have that architecture in place? What formed them? Was it something inherent in their being from the beginning of birth, since birth, or is it something that society forms and influences as time goes on in a person's life? These themes were covered in the village, and we'll be covering them on the show. And with every topic that people encounter in their everyday lives, you will have a polarized dichotomy of Coke versus Pepsi, Republicans versus Democrats, on and on and on it goes, every topic. And I want to get to the core of how and why people believe what they believe, or stick to the assumptions and the doctrines and the dogma and those underlying principles that guide people in their everyday lives. I want to kind of dig deeper and understand people's reality filters. The Robert Anton Wilson talked about the reality tunnel that everyone kind of exists in. I want to explore the balance between being creative and using your right brain and being in touch with the larger universe, and people that are locked into a left brain prison where it's all about reason and logic. And that certainly has a big part to play in how we're going to approach a show, logic and reason. But we also have to carefully balance that with our creative side and being open to possibilities, and not to the point where we are vulnerable or susceptible to any mindless agenda or theory or idea that comes along. No, we don't want to be that open-minded, but we want to be open-minded to possibilities and look at things from different perspectives and different angles to get to understand the volatile and the fixed in the universe. So with that being said, we're going to start with our first article, and I'm going to unmute Mark here. And the first article we're going to be covering, and actually, Mark, if you want to introduce yourself to the audience,
Sure.
This would be the time.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Mark Hicks. My channel is Raised by Gypsies. I started waking up totally, or at least on the flat Earth journey about 3 years ago now. Yeah, in March of 2015. And the first videos that I watched were Mark Sargent's, the Flat Earth Clues, and that immediately sent me on this strange journey I am on now, and I'm with Jason here. And I'll tell you what, after I started watching the Flat Earth Clues, just like everybody else, the I tried to debunk it. I tried to say, no, this isn't true. This can't be true. It can't be. And for the next 2 months, literally, I was 60 years old at the time. My stomach literally hurt. It was in pain. And I think it was all the programming coming out. It was just unbelievable. But I guess that's what the steps you have to go through to get here. But it sure feels better on the other side.
Okay, Mark, your microphone is breaking up again. So if you want to do what you did before, we'll do.
Sure.
I'll mute you for a second here. And with that, while Mark's fixing his mic, I will go to, let's see here. I will go to the first article, and I will present that in a moment. The first article we're going to cover. Let's see here. And it will be titled, "The Potential End of Space Station Raises Concerns and Presents Opportunities," written by Jeff Faust, space news writer at space.com. And I believe this article is from February 1st of 2018, so a couple weeks ago. Let me see if Mark has his mic fixed here. Hold on 1 second.
Oops.
Oh,
Try that.
Much better. Much better.
Well,
okay.
Tell me if it messes up again. I'm going to have to get a different microphone up here.
Yeah.
So until then, let me know, and I'll just reconnect.
All right, sounds good. Okay, I'm going to present myself here in a moment so I can show the first news article. And all right. One moment here. Okay, does everyone see that? All right. Okay. Yep. Good. All right. I was just checking the watch page to make sure. And yeah, I'm new at this, so it's gonna, yeah, and I'm showing the link. Oh, well. Okay. So I really, yeah, I'm not good at this. So yeah, sorry, folks. So the first, this first article, it, like I said, it kind of talks about the ending of the Obama administration's basically proposals for the NASA's budget and their programs that they put forward, and the beginning of President Trump's Space Policy Directive 1. And anyone that's read that knows that basically it's like so many other what happens with so many other transitions to from one administration to another, and it kind of illustrates that NASA serves basically as they just keep kicking the can down the road. We're constantly in a state of having one administration present like say heavy lift rockets like the Bush administration did, for going back to the moon. And then there's always these intermediary plans that end up getting promoted as well, where you have like, okay, well, there will be a way station on the way. There will be like some kind of orbiting, uh, um, you know, station on the way there. And so it just ends up being this huge amount of money. And you have Senator Bill Nelson from who was, I believe, the second senator to fly in space ostensibly, after Senator John Glenn from Ohio. Bill Nelson, he's a Democrat from Florida, and he does not like the idea of ending the ISS budget, which would be part of Space Directive 1 from President Trump. And I'll read a few interesting areas of this, and it's from the draft budget proposal of 2019, and they call for ending federal government support of the ISS by 2025. And again, things are always way off in the distance years wise. The Mars missions are always like that. They're always 10, 15, 20, 25 years off into the distance. Same goes for the private commercial companies like SpaceX. Things are always off in the distance. We'll get to that later on. But the NASA Transition Authorization Act of 2017, signed into law last March, directs NASA to develop an ISS transition plan. So a multi-step approach to transitioning from that low orbit, satellite to what the next thing would be. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, I sure do. To me, when I read this article the first time, what I felt was it was a way for NASA to step out of the picture. And I think that's where they're going with this, is they're kind of softening the beaches, so to speak, by putting out articles like this saying, you know what, in a few years we might not have enough money to do this. We have to get the private sector involved. We have to get the SpaceX and those type of organizations to come on board and do the same fakery we are, is what it comes down to. And this is a way, in my eyes, this is a way for NASA to step out the back door and not have any more responsibility for the moon landing and for all this other baloney we've been fed for 50 years. That's
sure
what I saw out of that.
I mean, it adds another layer to truth protective layers, as Neil Armstrong once said.
Yes.
It kind of it's like how we've seen with a lot of other aspects of the military industrial complex, in my opinion, where you have a merging of private and government interests. From there, you have that handing off of the baton of responsibility, legal responsibility. So the government agencies can come back and say, "Oh, that was that was done by a private company. There's plausible deniability." You have factors such as basically proprietary law comes into play when you have private companies involved. You have all where they're able to say, we can't talk about it because it's our proprietary research and development. And so again, the public is left in the dark as to what is actually happening. Whereas there's not that there's much
substance.
ability to get the government to answer questions in a straightforward fashion. Anyway, it's difficult.
Like you said earlier, Jason, it's another way for NASA to kick the can down the road. And that's exactly what it is. The whole thing, they've been doing that forever. We're going to do this in 10 years. We're going to do this in 5 years. And it never really develops. And, when they do put a space station out in space, how the heck did they build that anyways? They never even, we're going to do this. And all of a sudden, boom, it's out there.
Yes. I mean, in the article, they talk about having to build it modularly.
Right.
So you can update it and expand it.
Of that. Where is any proof that they actually had to bolt things together in space?
Yeah. Well, and the idea that NASA is operated under, since the being chartered under the Department of Defense and the National Security Act of 1947, where they have all those protections from actually having to be straightforward and explain and disclose and being transparent with everything that they're working on, with those security state kind of protocols in place and top secrecy,
right.
Top secret classifications and whatnot, they can kind of hide behind that. And what happens is NASA's been operating under the they ostensibly have cooperated with other countries on various projects, but you have a mindset where there's one single space station or there's one single big huge rocket that's going to be this one big mission. And I think they're kind of because of their failures over the years, and it's since 1972 we've done nothing basically other than the ISS and launching a few rovers, if you believe that. Devon Island, Mars Curiosity, Greenland, Chile, various other deserts. Those are we might get to that too at a future date, those stories. But the larger thing is, like, also they mentioned Bigelow Aerospace, Robert Bigelow, the entrepreneur, multi-millionaire company founder of Bigelow Aerospace, who's been involved in the UFO community for over 25 years. He started NIDS, the I believe, what's the acronym for that? The National Institute for Discovery Science or something along those lines. And he bought Skinwalker Ranch, where there were he had various teams of people doing research regarding paranormal activity at the Skinwalker Ranch. Anyway, this guy, it just came out on December 16th. If anyone's been following it, the quote unquote little small step towards UFO disclosure. Robert Bigelow is involved in that ATIP program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which was pushed through Congress by Senator Harry Reid from Nevada, and where Bigelow Aerospace is based in Nevada. And this has all been reported by George Knapp and Linda Moulton Howe and all these other types of people that talk about UFOs. But the ATIP program was a small little speck of money, federal money, that was directed towards identifying so-called threats. And on December 16th, they had that coordinated news release of Washington Post, New York Times, etc., where they said that the Department of Defense had this program, is funded to something to the likes of 22 million or something in that range over the course of 4 or 5 years. I think it went from 2007 to 2012, and then I think it continued under under the auspices of CIA operative Luis Elizondo, I think his name is. Anyway, the long and the short of it is Bigelow has had his hands in the government cookie jar for many years, and Bigelow Aerospace, you know, being the focal point of that ATIP program where all the research went to them. So that, again, kind of tying into the private public government agency partnership there. Bigelow Aerospace is, you know, just like so many of these other private space companies where they're up to their, they see space as a huge opportunity to get government funds confiscated from the taxpayers.
Right. Yep.
So any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, you're exactly right. You're spot on. That's what Elon Musk is all about too. I mean, if you think it's his businesses that are driving this, it's not true.
Exactly. Well, NASA acting administrator Robert Lightfoot, no, I'm not sure if he's related to Gordon Lightfoot, the folk singer, but Robert Lightfoot, the acting administrator for NASA, he's like, he's quote unquote, or quote, we've been working on the plan. We've been working with the administration, unquote. I think when the budget comes out, folks will see we've been asked to go what we've been asked to go do and how we think we're going to do it. That is bureaucratic word salad mumbo jumbo where he doesn't really say anything because they don't really have a plan. They have no focus. They have no vision. So whether you believe that exploring space is a real possibility or not, there are various camps on that. And we all know the players involved in who believes, you know, that
Right.
we have all these possibilities and who doesn't. Not going to get into that now, but depending, no matter what your what your view on cosmology is, what your view on the current state of our scientific capabilities are, the pure fact is we're not there. No one's been there for many, many years, the last 50 years since the Apollo missions ended in 1972.
Yep.
Or nearly 50 years. It's incredible. So that ties into the next thing I was going to talk about. I didn't show you this, Mark,
Okay.
but I was going to talk about two individuals that have been pushing the Mars missions since the early 90s. You have Robert Zubrin, who's the founder of the Mars Society. He's been around on various radio programs, been around pushing this whole idea of getting back to Mars. He has I think in northern Canada, he had the Mars One something or other project where they're doing all the quote unquote science of what it would take to technically live and exist in a very small habitat from, you know, based on the modular spacecraft that would land on Mars ostensibly. And so Robert Zubrin has been very critical of NASA and very critical of the government's vision. And his partner over the years, they've written articles together. His name is Dr. Christopher McKay, and I think he's with the NASA Ames Research Center. Anyway, these two have been around for many years, talking about what NASA needs to do, and NASA never listens, even though they're very respected within the scientific community. At least McKay is. And so there's this article from the Washington Post from March 17th, I believe, of last year. So it's, 7-8 months old now. But Mars Society founder blasts NASA for worst plan yet. So he's been, like I said before, pushing this dream of getting to the red planet for 2 decades. And he just blasts the kind of what we were talking about before in the first article with the ISS transition plan. He's kind of blasts the whole idea of what's been going on with the Mars plan. And that he says that NASA's idea of having a spaceport around the moon in orbit and then that would be a jump off point for the longer duration or missions to Mars. He doesn't really like that. He's just like, he has a $5 billion a year, 10-year plan, so $50 billion plan basically, which would be a heck of a lot cheaper than the $460 billion Mars, or the most recent Mars mission that NASA put forward for 1 year. So his would be like a fraction, I believe, over the course of 10 years. But he has a Mars Direct kind of idea, the Mars Direct plan. He's like, no, let's not go to the moon. Let's not do this intermediate kind of way station along the way kind of idea with another space station. Let's go directly to Mars with the technology that we have. So yeah, so I'll post the link to all these articles later in the after the show. I think I have some of them in there now. But to get back on track here, I just wanted to read what Zubrin says here. He says it's. Hold on a second. My screen just went blank. I have to refresh that. Hold on one moment.
Got her.
All this darn all these damn ads running up. My internet just blinked out on me for a second. Hold on one second.
Isn't it funny how, even the Washington Post, the space.com, Live Science, all those, as soon as you bring them up, they're just full, just layered with ads on them, and then they criticize somebody in the truth movement for getting paid for advertisements on their videos.
Exactly. Okay, so Robert Zubrin, quote unquote, what we have now is just drift. It's not a program, quote unquote. He said the lunar spaceport is not needed to go to Mars or even to the surface of the moon. It's just a way to spend money. Exactly. That is exactly it. So even within this the academic community, there is a lot of criticism. Zubrin goes on to say, quote, there is not a plan. This is random activity, unquote. After the presentation, Zubrin gave the Washington Post some additional thoughts on what he perceives as NASA's failure to come up with a bold and coherent plan. He said that in a long history of NASA studies on the future of human spaceflight, there's a long list of these lengthy reports. No one ever suggested that an orbital lunar outpost was a necessary part of the exploration program. Exactly. They're always coming up with these boondoggles, these things that just spend money, basically.
Ask Buzz. He'll tell you how to get to Mars. Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that article. I'm just going to show another thing I kind of came across. This is from the NASA Langley Research Center YouTube channel. And they came up with, this is from a couple years ago, but they came up with this amazing animation to show a proposed exploration to Venus. Look at these ridiculous. I don't even know what these things are. So the Advanced Concept Lab at the NASA Langley Research Center made this video. These buffoons at the Advanced Concept Lab, I mean, they're probably good people, with some interesting ideas, but it never goes anywhere. These arms of NASA at these different research centers just sit around and come up with these. They get paid to come up with things that are never going to happen, that will never get budgeted. So I love this dirigible, this Zeppelin. We're back in the 1930s and 40s, Mark. We're going to have a Zeppelin and floating above Venus.
Oh my!
Because it's so, the pressures are so intense on the surface that they have to kind of do this piecemeal, and we'll be floating. We'll be floating above. I love. It's just amazing. And then at the end of the animation, they're having a bunch of yucks in front of a green screen.
Oh, love it.
Look at this. This is amazing.
You mess
Oh,
with the green screen. This is how we do it.
and we not there's never any of these grizzled people in their 50s, 60s, 70s that are like that have been around the block a few times, as you like to say. And it's always these snowflake millennial generation people that are at these celebrations for SpaceX,
Oh,
that are yucking it up on these little promo videos. Not to be ageist, but and I'm a younger guy, but come on, Venus beyond amazing. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
that is.
Okay, now before it gets too late here, I want to get to the idea of what happened with SpaceX. I'm gonna kind of start. I'll present you in a second, Mark, with
Okay.
what you're gonna show and what you showed me earlier
Yeah, I
this
will.
morning.
Mhm.
So the idea of rockets. I just want to get into this for a second. Are we seeing anything that's really new? Are I think people need to understand the history of rockets. I mean, going back to medieval Chinese Song dynasty in the 13th century, we had technology, rocket technology. They're, crude chemical rockets, but rockets are nonetheless.
Have you,
So, I
Jason?
mean, all through the last 500 some years, there's been various people experimenting with rockets. So, just in the last 100 years, it's gotten to the point where we have the more advanced, multi-stage, heavy lift rockets, and no one doubts that technology exists, or at least, I mean, maybe there are people that doubt it, but I mean, I don't doubt it. I don't know what you think, Mark, but these things go, they exist. I mean, we see missiles or variations of rockets being launched off aircraft carriers and whatnot, you know.
Yep.
But anyone knowing the history of rockets, this is the Wikipedia page. I mean, it doesn't take much to know that, yeah, this technology exists. So are we to be excited by NASA still and these private space organizations still using rockets? I mean, it's like, isn't there a move towards any other types of technologies? Not to get into too far into the military industrial complex and into the deep R&D that's occurring. Are they withholding certain levels of technology from us that do not employ burning jet fuel or combustion engines or rocket propellants? Um, are there other technologies that they have been working on? Well, right now in the public domain, we don't have any evidence of that necessarily. That can be falsified or verified. A key component of the scientific method, by the way. So many of the stories that we are given are not verifiable, not falsifiable, whatnot. I will go into a diatribe about that at a later date, but um, yeah. So I'm going to go back to I just
That's
wanted to
very
say
good.
that as a precursor. I'm going to stop presenting myself
Okay.
and let's see here. I'm going to present you
Okay.
and
Let me know when I'm.
actually I really am blinking out. Okay, go ahead and do your screen share. Get your screens ready.
All right. And then bring this up.
Yep.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Mhm. Okay.
You sharing yet? No? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Did you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. This is the recording of the Falcon Heavy liftoff right at the very end. I recorded it live, and this is the recording that they made. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, good. First off, this guy right here, I would love to put into a headlock. All right, so if you watch this live, you saw this. Okay, that. And that was a transition. That was supposed to be a transition from this in the studio and then transitioning to, boom, there he is. And there's the Earth behind him. There's Rocket Man. All right. During that transition, this glitch happened right here. And I brought it into Premiere so then I can go frame by frame just by pushing a button on my keyboard. And that's what I'm going to do here. And first off, if you look at what's behind the Rocket Man in the car here, you can see this weird kind of, it almost look like a padded background there. Okay, and then I'm going to pop over here to After Effects. And in here, I got a picture that very closely resembles, and I'm sure you'll agree, that padded background that's taped together or whatever the heck they got going on there. I'm not sure. But it looks very close. It looks like it's in the same place. To me, it does. So I'm going to go back to Premiere here, and I'm going to step this forward one click at a time. And every time I click this, it's a 24th of a second. I think they're shooting in 24 frames a second. And so every click is one frame. So here we go. Watch that Rocket Man. I'm clicking the keyboard here. I'm moving this forward. Okay, now
Okay. Yep.
this is when the transition really starts to occur. And I think what they tried to do here was some sort of an overexposure transition. And when you overdo an overexposure transition, it kind of blurs out everything. But if you watch up here, okay, in this background, I don't want you to watch Rocket Man here. I want you to watch in the background here. And it looks like these are actually now, they look like two doors. Okay, and as I click this forward, look at that. Now you got more of the exposure, but the doors have seemed to open. And here,
Right.
it looks like there's a little latch right here too. Okay, that's one more click, and then the doors are open further, and you can see now we're starting to get like a real bright light from somewhere coming in. Okay,
Right.
two more clicks, the doors are open further and further. Okay, now let's go back to After Effects here, and I got another picture of that right here. Okay, and this is looking at the car from the front. So we're looking at the area that is actually opening up right now in this video that I recorded in their live presentation. Okay, and if you look right here, there's a little latch right there on that door.
Right.
And a little spot right here where that latch can latch. Okay, so these are the doors. It appears to me these are the doors that are opening up in this transition. Okay, so let's go a little bit further in this transition. And as I move forward, okay, now the doors are completely open. They're out of camera view. And then boom, you get this big overexposure thing. And guess what? Now Rocket Man is in space. So everyone thinks anyways. Okay? So it appears to me, I'm going to go back to After Effects here, and it appears to me what's happening here is they tried to shoot this thing live for some reason, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and the only reason I can think of now that they'd want to shoot it live is right now is just as practice for in the future. Like when they want to shoot something live, let's say they're going to do another one of these things, or next time they shoot a bus in the clouds or something, I don't know. But when you do it live, you're able to react then to public review. So,
Right.
okay. And that's the only reason I can think of that they want to play around with this live. And that's exactly what I think they did with this, is they shot it live. And let me bring up this other picture here again. And if you look behind, now these are the doors, if you can see my pointer, these are the doors that we're talking about here. And look right behind here. Doesn't that look like a screen to you? It sure does to me, like some sort of a screen. And that's what they were opening up
Right.
these doors for. And they were shooting from the side. And if you look at this little pedestal thing that this thing is on, I guess it's supposed to resemble like the end of the nose cone or something. But they might be able to spin that car around on there. I don't know. I don't know what the problem
And
is.
in the video, in the live feed, which has been altered, by the way, and
Yes.
anyone that wants to, everyone should check out, and I'll post the link.
To Jaron?
The last Globebusters show on Sunday, and Jaronism, Jaron Campanella doing his breakdown of how they've edited. They went back and edited the live feed,
Isn't that's just
which
that's disgusting.
no one's able to do that once it's posted. Apparently, am I wrong about that? Once your video is posted on YouTube, and Google does not allow that. I mean, so Jaron went into that and a great investigation on that. But
Now, if we look down a little bit closer,
they never show the bottom in the video. They never show we just see the top half of the car.
Right. And a back view you get, and a front view and a side view, I think is all you get. But look down where my pointer is now. I can actually zoom in on that here. Doesn't that look like a wheel? That's the bottom of that door. Like if they were going to open up that door for some reason. I don't know if you can see
where the door can swing.
Where a door can roll. Like there's a little lock on it. Like there's a little wheel right there. That's what kind of looks like to me.
It does sort of look like that. It's hard to say.
It is hard to say. This picture, these were the best pictures I could get off the internet. The highest resolution.
Sure.
Of the car without it being in space. And
not to interrupt you, but like Iro Landucci and Antonio Subrat said on Globebusters, first of all, there's no rear view mirror, which limits the amount of mirror reflections you're going to see when the car is ostensibly rotating.
No, I think Mark Sargent, I think, was the first one to say that. And
okay.
But I think there might be another reason they removed that mirror too, was so you could see through that windshield. They're pretty proud of that back shot, where they had the back of what was that guy, Spaceman's helmet, and then you could see through that windshield. And seeing through that windshield is what actually sent me in this direction. Originally, I thought what they were doing was a rotoscope, and a rotoscope is nothing more than doing something like this. You bring it into a program like this, and actually I rotoscoped this one already and saved it. You can
hold on, Mark. Your mic is breaking up. You want to?
Yep. Let me do that quick.
Fix that for a second. While he's fixing his mic, it bears repeating and repeating and repeating that people need to question what has been presented us. We have been presented with the idea that a car was launched into space vis-a-vis a heavy lift rocket It's Falcon Heavy, brah. I love the name Falcon Heavy. um, that being said, uh, but yeah, we've been presented with the idea that the car was launched into space, a la the 1981 movie Heavy Metal, um, and a few other videos. But it's not an original idea. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually, I saw a video on YouTube of him criticizing um, Elon Musk, and he said something to the effect of it was so American to launch a car into space. You know, just kind of like it was so brazen and just so it was such a derogatory kind of condescending tone that he took to Elon Musk. No matter what you think of Elon Musk, I mean, they've had not too many people know this. With regarding the people I talk to, but I was talking to someone recently, and they were like, "Really, Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't like Elon Musk?" Yeah, if you look at it, there's been an ongoing feud between those two in various speeches that they give, various interviews that they give. So it's kind of interesting. Mark, are you there? Can you speak for a moment to see if your mic's fixed? I'm not hearing you. Mark? Okay, well, I can't hear Mark right now, so
How about that? Can you hear
there
me?
we go. There we
Okay.
go.
Okay, I had to click the mic once, I guess. Click the mic mute button. Okay. Um, let's go back
Okay,
to this.
you're not screen share. Hold on one second.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
All right. We're back to then this vehicle in this room, whatever this room is. I have no idea what this is. This is probably very new technology. And if you look at the floor looks very odd too. Like it might even be a screen of some sort. I don't know. But anyways, what I originally thought was they actually rotoscoped this thing, and that's what this technique is right here that I'm showing. And what this does is, I can't rotoscope it right now because it's already been done. But what this does is I can swipe around this car with this little marker thing, and it will say, okay, we just want the car in the picture. Okay, then you freeze it, and when you get done, you can have something like this, like that. Okay, and
That's great.
that's how hard it really is. I can move this car around, or I can move around whatever.
What did you think of that program that Iro Landucci was showing? That zero, what is it called? Zero density,
Yes,
where it's real time uh, rendering of.
that is correct, and that's what that's what they're doing live, I believe here. That's one of the things they're playing with, is to get that live presentation down well for future events, and Lord knows what they're going to come up with next. You
So
know,
it's taking, for people that didn't see it. Uh, Iro Landucci was showing a program, or it's a, is it a company, Zero Density? But they have software where they can lifetime render a model of a car or any object and put it
any
and
place.
basically it's almost like it's is it augmented reality, is that the proper terminology for it?
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah, we're
I'm not real uh, familiar with that. You know, this is, to me, it's brand new stuff, and so I'm not real familiar with it, but it's very interesting, and it might be a way that they're bringing those rockets back too. You know, those boosters. I,
sure.
I just, I can't believe they're doing it. You know, I've been an auto technician my entire life. Okay, and I used to train auto technicians for a manufacturer. And now, if I went to one of the engineers that worked for this manufacturer and said, okay, if I throw this pencil up in the air, can you figure out a way to make it land straight down on the ground? And that's virtually what they're doing, only it's 40 ton or 40,000 pounds that they're doing that with. Can you imagine trying to balance a pencil on your finger? And the way they're controlling that is through these little jets on the side, and you see them squirt out every once in a while. Let me tell you, if you're trying to hold that pencil on your finger or trying to hold that thing, balance it, you'd be shooting out those jets constantly. Okay, and that's something you don't see, which you should see, is what I saw missing in that whole thing. Plus the jet strength coming out the bottom, or the rocket strength coming out the bottom, isn't nearly enough to stop that. Isn't nearly enough. Look how much it takes to lift it up. Take twice as much to stop it coming down.
Sure.
And,
yeah, not to mention, I mean, I'm a big fan of Formula One, and
oh, good.
everything about Formula One, or in car racing in general, is about aerodynamics and weight.
That's right.
And they spend millions and millions and millions. The UK people know this pretty well. The top teams like McLaren and Ferrari and all the top teams, they all have mega expensive wind tunnel facilities in the UK. Most of the teams are based in the UK. And anyway, aerodynamics is everything. So I want to know, on the Formula One car, there's all these little winglets and stuff that they put on the front bumpers and all around the car, side pods and the rear wings.
Yep.
And it, when these cars are going through, not going in, forward the way they're intended to be, when they go to when they're spinning or whatnot, it exerts massive shearing forces on those little winglets and whatnot, and they get moved or they get torn off by the by those forces that, cars meant to go forward, not sideways or whatever. So I'd like to know, what are the shearing forces on those fins on the rocket?
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other part of that is, and I'm sure I'm happy you brought that up, because if you get into like funny cars and stuff like that, once they go down the track, that engine is shot. It has to be bored out, re-sleeved, excuse me, and completely gone through again. Granted, it's a piston engine. I understand that, but just from the vibration of it. And if you don't think these rockets have a vibration when they take off, okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to shoot these rockets up in the air and then bring them back again so we can completely go through the whole thing. You're going to have to x-ray that whole thing to make sure there's no structural cracks or anything in there before you shoot that off again. So by the time you go through all that work, why don't you just build another one? Understand? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand it.
Exactly.
Why are you wasting this? Why are you trying to use all this technology to bring the thing back, which I don't think they're doing. I don't know how they're doing that, but I don't think they're doing that. And then you're gonna have to go through all this expense to make sure it's okay and rebuild it. By the time you get done with that, you might as well throw it away. Let it fall in the big lake out there.
Sure.
I don't understand the whole process, the mental process of how you're actually saving money or time or anything with that. But anyways, I think what they're doing is they are actually shooting that live in a room somewhere. Lord only knows where it is, maybe in Texas or someplace. And what really set me off on that was Antonio put a video out yesterday. I suggest watching that, and it was put out. It was mirrored by him, and what it showed is that that windshield, when they started the shots of that windshield
Yes.
is pristine, and by the time they get done, that windshield is all streaked across with moisture and everything. Well, there's no moisture in space, right? So somehow when they were doing this in their studio thing, it got moisture in the windshield, is what it looked like to me, and somebody tried cleaning it off. What it looked like to me, it
Exactly.
it's very obvious.
I did
I would
see
show his
that.
video right now, but I
I
don't
didn't know
know.
what to make of it.
But that set
With
me off. That they're not rotoscoping that, because if they were rotoscoping that, they would have to rotoscope that windshield also. They'd have to
Sure.
cut out that windshield. They'd have to make it reflective and see through at the same time, and that's really tough to do.
Sure.
That's tough to do in After Effects. I'm not sure I could do that, but I believe, and that's what set me off to look further into it. And so there you go. That's
Yes.
what I think happened. It was
My one of my questions is, where's Mrs. Starman? Must he what did she do to him that he
that he got
agreed to
stuck in
be
the doghouse,
launched and jettisoned into space, never to be seen again?
right?
Women of Earth, what have you done to Starman? Why is he willing to be jettisoned into space? Anyway,
Wow, very good.
yeah, well, there are many YouTube channels covering that, um, you know, what is being presented to us as a historical event of launching the first car into space. It's a pretty, no matter where you stand on the situation, it's definitely, he, Elon Musk definitely knows how to market himself and to get attention.
And
And that, and oh, go ahead.
yeah, you know what? I had that same thought. He is a heck of a marketer. And you know who else was a very good marketer? Warner von Braun. And
He made a great video about.
and maybe what they're trying to do is is uh, the rebirth of Warner von Braun with Elon Musk. Look how he's he's like the Pied Piper. All these guys are following him through the street. As he blows his pipe, which is a bunch of baloney.
Exactly.
And it was just like Warner von Braun. He did the same thing. What he did is he came in and he educated everyone. This is how we're going to get to the moon. Believe me, look, we've been working on this a long time. And Elon Musk is he might be just taking that same role.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always good to have, and this goes back to Edward Bernays and the idea of advertising and his famous book Propaganda, I believe it's titled. I've read sections of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but it's a really fascinating read. And this ties into all these other topics that we will be getting into on this show. This has been a space article kind of heavy show. Not all the shows are going to be about space, but all these subjects tie together. Philosophy. Now, Bernays talked about the idea of in psychology, and understanding how the populace responds to certain stimuli, kind of studying us like lab rats from a clinical psychology standpoint, and being able to predict how we will respond to what we're presented with. So that is why we're going to cover philosophy, and we're going to cover psychology, and we're going to cover all these other topics on this show. I think it's vitally important.
It is very important, and that's
but it ties into the idea of charlatans and gurus and shamans and always having to have a savior. We've been programmed, and as a writer, hashtag show alert, hashtag shameless plug, as a writer, as a novelist, you can I kind of can tell fiction from reality. At least I used to be able to, or at least I thought so, a little bit more clearly than our current milieu time period that we're experiencing. Um, it's the idea that we have to have this hero go through, all the movies that we're presented with. Hollywood loves the idea of the hero's journey, the monomyth, the idea of the hero being an individual like Han Solo, or being Iron Man, who Iron Man is often equated with Elon Musk. It's this independently, supposedly wealthy entrepreneur that's into cool technology. And now, unlike Tony Stark, the Iron Man of comics and movies, Elon does not have a technical background of science where where he's inventing this stuff himself. He gets government money confiscated from taxpayers, as I said earlier in the show, to where he can hire people that do the hiring of other people that do the actual work at SpaceX or at Tesla. He has the vision of what he wants done, and some believe that he's himself is a puppet and is controlled. We need to see more evidence on that, in my opinion. But go ahead.
I think so too. I think he is absolutely controlled, and he's been in on it from the beginning. Honestly, where did he get his money from to start?
Well, I mean, I think he bought into, or was a early, or I don't know if he founded PayPal, but I know he owned it at one point.
Yes, he did.
Then,
he sell that.
He was, yeah.
How did he get to PayPal in the first place? Where did he get his start from? From what I understand, he had some sort of business prior to that he had sold, and then he went back to college for a short period of time, and then kind of disappeared for about a year, and then all of a sudden came back and had all this money, and we're gonna build a car, and we're gonna go to the moon, kind of thing. Just came out of nowhere.
Exactly. Well, like Werner von Braun was the public face of captivating the imagination of the public, just as Elon is doing now. Well, it's kind of the idea of what I was talking about, with the idea of having a hero, having someone to look up to. We've been programmed to think that way.
Yep.
And I think it can be destructive. Be the change in your life that you want to see. Don't look to a shaman, a guru. These people may have traits that you find admirable, and that's great. And then apply that to your own life. But looking to heroes and looking to these mythical characters and these saviors, I don't want to be a slave to someone else's agenda. I want, as a free thinking, responsible individual, I want to determine my own outcome and my own destiny, experience fate as it comes. So yeah.
I'm not a number. I'm a free man.
Yeah, exactly. Straight from the prisoner. I'm saying goodbye to some of the people in chat that are having to leave. Like, thank you, Eternal Padawan D, for checking us out. Like I said earlier, this is going to be a weekly show. It might not always be live, depending on our schedules. I have a busy work schedule, and got a couple writing projects that I'm working on right now, and my new novel will be coming out hopefully later this year. Maybe might get a little delayed, but I've been working on that, and Mark is working on his videos. Do you want to talk about some of the next video that you're working on, Mark? Because I think it's really interesting.
The next video is going to be on the navigation system for the Apollo 11, and I found some very interesting things in there that I think will interest you too. They talk about how they use the onboard computer to get to the moon and back. and there are some discrepancies in there.
Oh wow, the part that you showed me, that was just incredible.
Yeah, I know. It's just the whole, and I'm not sure how much to include in that. I'd like to also include like how it's constructed, because you could see that old technology, and if you think that worked way back then, I'm not so sure. But anyways, and then also I'm going to disclose this on your show.
All right.
I came across an audio tape from the Apollo 11 that no one else has ever heard, and we'll call it serendipity, right?
Sure.
That I came into my possession. But we also have there was a recorder inside the LEM as a detached from the command module and left for the moon, and we have a recording of that we're going to also disclose.
Wow. That is really interesting and intriguing to say the least.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting. I'll guarantee you that.
Mark, is there anything else that you wanted to share or present to on screen before I stop presenting you here?
No, I think we're good. We're a little bit over our hour.
Yeah, exactly.
How fast time flies. But it was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A little bit of a dumpster fire with a technical presentation of the screens and stuff. I don't know what I'm doing yet, and I need to learn more. It's the first time running a hangout like this. Actually, the second time we had a hangout with Antonio a few months back, but we weren't really trying to present screens and do all that stuff. So I will get better at showing the articles, and we didn't get to even 10% of the articles that I had lined up. But there's a couple other things I wanted to show first before we leave you folks. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yes, thank you everyone.
Just hold on one moment. Okay. Let me see here. Let me present. So I have something that I want to share that I think is by far, well, I'll just show it here. Let me hit my screen share thing button here. This is case closed, folks. Case closed. And I'm going to present myself here. This is evidence. All you flat earthers out there, this is evidence of the that we live on a globe.
Oh, I see what they're doing. Oh.
Checkmate, flat earthers.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't figure it out. Oh my god.
Time to move on. No more questioning things and researching things. The heliocentric model, the Big Bang Theory, evolution, dark matter, even though it's just a placeholder, no evidence, not falsifiable, not verifiable. Yeah. Just so everyone's clear, yeah, this is my evidence.
If you take a globe and you flip it upside down, they all say for entertainment purposes only, or for or for something like that.
And there's a friend of the show that is going to give us an opinion of that evidence right there. And there he is. What do you think, Cheech? Does Cheech think that is evidence of the globe?
Says holy shnikes. Look at that. The axle. It's the axle.
Cheech looks unamused and unimpressed.
Right. One of my favorite guys from years gone by.
All right. Well, let me see if there's anything else that I want to talk about here quick. I had a bunch of stuff. Oh, one more story that I just to kind of touch on briefly here. NASA losing contact with their satellite 12 years ago. An amateur just found its signal. This is from
Oh, yeah.
MSN.com. Did you have any thoughts on this amateur finding the signal? Even though NASA, with its $19 billion a year budget, lost it. They've lost it 12 years ago. Last 12 years, it's a cold case. We don't have any detectives on it in our agency. There's nothing to see here.
It's always an unnamed.
We can't see it. We can't see it. We can't hear it. It's gone. We need more money. Oh, but wait, maybe something, I don't know. Whether this amateur actually found the signal, I would need to have more of a technical background. I'm a novelist. I'm not a expert in electrical signals and EMF and
all that crap.
And broadcasting, what these satellites, apparently what the equipment they use to broadcast the signal back to the blue marble. I don't know. So I don't have the background, but it's, again, that's why we're going to have in the future other people on as guests to give their expert opinion.
And let us know, yeah, if they know about how these signals bounce. The first thing that I thought about this is baloney, because they didn't name anybody. Who's the amateur? You couldn't even go check with them. Is there anything? Does he have a web page or something you can go see, or anything? Nothing. Okay, and the next thing that turned me off says now engineers from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. That's all I needed to read. That is a bunch of baloney right there. That Goddard Space Center, boy, they have come up with them.
Right.
Oh my goodness. If we don't nearly have enough time to get into that, but that's all I needed to read. But I don't believe I think it's all made up, the whole thing. There hasn't been any signal out there for, what did they say, how many years? And I don't think an amateur actually found it. I think it's all baloney. It's all bullshit.
Well, again, the idea of this show is we're going to look at a lot of things. We're going to be looking at a lot of different topics, and I personally like to have. I personally like to withhold judgment. I'm constantly in an I don't know state of mind. It's very humbling experience the last 2-3 years, where before that I thought I knew quite a bit about various subjects, and last couple of years looking into alternative cosmology, looking into the heliocentric model, looking into the geocentric model, looking into reading things that I never would imagine I would read, such as King's Dethroned, Gerard Hickson, 1922. I would highly recommend everyone read that book if they're interested in understanding where we are right now with the paradigm being presented by modern physics and modern astronomy.
What was it again?
King's Dethroned by Gerard Hickson. I recommend it to everyone. But again, we won't be just talking about space issues, but again, yeah, it's all these subjects. I want to show how all these subjects tie in together. There is no separation between these subjects. I think you showed pretty well in your video about Operation Paperclip and Werner von Braun and Disney.
Yes.
All the connections. You have connections to the military industrial complex, World War II, really how, we could go back farther to how the Treaty of Versailles set in motion from the aftermath of World War I, how that set in motion World War II. It's almost as if it was planned. Joseph P. Farrell, one of my favorite authors, kind of discusses that in his books.
It just seems like you have these factions and different governments and all that these small groups that are steering the whole works, like the Allen Dulles and the Kissinger days.
Sure.
and the ones that come up behind them just follow in suit. You know, okay, this is how we do things. Okay, so now these groups are getting bigger and bigger, and more rock solid as time goes on. It's scary as hell.
And we
And
see,
where are we today? Look at what we're looking at. Look what's happening to our citizens on the streets. If I see a cop, I'm 63 years old, man. If I see a cop behind me, you know, pull me over for a traffic stop or something like that, I'm scared shitless. You know, if I say the wrong thing to this guy, even I live in a small community, and you know, you look at these cops and they look like they're ready for war. Like, holy crap! That scares the crap out of you.
I have nothing wrong with police um, preparing themselves
No,
for
I don't either.
what's on the streets, because um, we have a lot of it's a dangerous profession. It's a very dangerous profession. It's a thin blue line.
Right. I have a son who's a police officer or was, and he got out of it. You know,
But do they need to be militarized? Do they need to? I mean, to be safe, do they need to be driving, you know, military vehicles down the streets?
No.
Not saying they are on a regular basis.
Right.
Just, yeah. I mean, these are the things that, you know, we need to discuss as a common sense thoughtful society. We have to balance things. In all these topics that we'll be talking about, we need to balance logic and reason with and not being automatically being an auto hoaxer, being automatically thinking everything is like the ultimate worst possibility. I mean, but when you've been lied to repeatedly, and kind of ties back into World War II and your video and Werner von Braun, when you've been lied to repeatedly as a public, when the files to JFK's assassination, the Warren Commission are still, I mean, they've recently been trickling out, but when still being told, sure, when subjects like that, when subjects that affect everyone are withheld from the supposedly free society, you get this sense that, hey, we're being lied to. They're not telling us everything. Sometimes, I mean, are we individuals? Do we need to be treated like infants, children?
Right.
Is government our parents? I mean, a lot of people view government as a proper government should be functioning in that role, and I personally disagree. I do not abide by that, but I think, yeah, that's where personal responsibility goes. You have to, and it ties into the show The Prisoner, balancing personal responsibility and balancing your role in society and affecting the change in society when you see wrongs being committed, or corruption, or lies being perpetrated by corporations or public officials or our government agencies. You know, a lot of these government agencies are experiencing regulatory capture, where the administration heads and the bureaucracy that works for these regulatory commissions, like the EPA, like the etc., where they are a revolving door of going from being in the government role, and then they step down and then enter the private domain and work for the corporations that the regulatory agency is supposed to be monitoring.
Right.
That's why I say, who watches the watchers?
Yeah.
It's all about, there's so much regulatory capture where it's a revolving door, and these people go from corporations back into government work and then back again. That's why there's that meme or mantra that Trump has of draining the swamp. There's a lot of Congress critters, these senators and congressmen, that are in office for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're just bought and paid for by the lobbyists. So all these things tied together: politics, military policy, our NASA, science. So
our police. the whole thing is all tied together. You're absolutely right. And and you know, the only way that you're going to get away from it is to expose it. You have to, and hopefully, like our listeners, they'll take any information that they like that we talked about and express that to others and pass it on. That's all we can do.
I agree.
And we have to be vigilant about that. Tell your family, even if they don't want to hear. I have two sons and one daughter. None of them believe what I believe. Okay, but I tell it to them all the time, and it's not like they think I'm crazy. They just think it's too big to be hidden.
Sure.
And but and also the other part of that is, and this is a part of this program that I'd love to get into is how did the family unit get to where it is right now? How did we get in this position? And that was all part of that. And you touched on that earlier too. And I would really like to,
Yes, we will definitely be getting into that.
Yes.
Into that, I should say.
What happened? What happened?
Yes, we will touch on cultural Marxism and its consequences. We will touch on what's going on in academia. We will touch on all that.
That's good.
It's a topic I'm really interested in. And so, yeah, I think that's a good place to end. I want to thank everyone that's tuned in. I don't want to be conducting multi-hour marathon shows. It's tough for people to be able to consume that. Everyone's busy. There's a lot of great content out there. There are a lot of great shows out there that people like to watch. Hopefully we'll find our niche. We'll get our legs underneath us. It won't be as much of a technical dumpster fire as it was earlier in the show.
We'll get better every time.
Exactly. And so look forward to either you, Mark, or I'll do it where we break this show into smaller, more consumable little bites for people to watch.
I can do that for you.
Sure.
If you tell me, if you give me the times that you want things are, if you want something.
Yeah, definitely.
Special out of the show, just let me know that time, and I'll cut that up for you.
For sure. I just wanted to maybe end things with a quote, and yeah, Antonio, thanks for showing up. You missed my clear cut case closed. It's over evidence for the flat Earth. You missed it. Where were you? I'm just just giving him some grief. So I want to end on a quote, and it's from Soren Kierkegaard, and it is, quote, "There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true. The other is to refuse to accept what is true," unquote.
Hear, hear.
So with that being said, plan on another show. I don't know if it'll be live or not. We'll see depending on our schedules, but plan on a show being recorded or being live next Tuesday. I want to try to have a reliable time that everyone can count on so they know what and when to expect. So yeah, and that makes it easier for people to tune in or whatnot, or just plan on watching it later. So thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be seeing you. Peace. There's an off button in there somewhere.
Yep.